shared on your screen. So regularity in eating. And the first point to bring out is this, that rhythm and regularity is a component of bodily health. These are my notes that I'm sharing with you. So having set times for eating, sleeping, for example, trains your body when to feel hungry. In other words, you can have an internal clock that you can set by regularity and discipline. We have a body which runs off of a rhythm. Lack of rhythm leads to confusion. Confusion in the system leads to disease. So in everything, a single thing that we do, eating being no exception, we need to have a regularity and a rhythm. Your body has internal intelligence, which is outside of your cognitive abilities. It's outside of your intellect. You may be able to say, hey, I'm going to do this, but there are certain things that your body does all on its own. However, you still have the input. You can train your body to catch on to a cycle. And when it comes to regularity in eating and sleeping, for example, this is what we want. Harmony. Hear me out. Harmony equals wellness. Disharmony, confusion, being all over the place equals sickness. So this is the first point that I want to bring out this evening, that regularity in something as small as eating may not be so small. The results from it can be larger than we have heretofore thought. All right. The first point that the book brings up in this chapter is about giving the stomach rest. The stomach must have careful attention. I'm going to read to you. This one comes on page 173. If you have been reading the book, this you would have covered already. It says here, the stomach must have careful attention. Think about the stomach more than we think about the tongue. You know, we have a tendency to respect the tongue and diss the stomach, okay? But we want to change that around. Not because the stomach doesn't have taste buds, but we want to respect it. It must not be kept in continual operation. Give this misused and much abused organ some peace and quiet rest. Oh yeah, consider Mr. Stomach and respect him some more is what this is saying. After the stomach has done its work for one meal, do not crowd more work upon it before it has had a chance to rest and before sufficient supply of gastric juice is provided by nature to care for more food. So the stomach needs time and space. 5 hours at least should elapse between each meal. And always bear in mind that if you would give it a try, you would find that 2 meals are better than 3. We're going to talk about that some more as we progress along this presentation. But I want you to take that into your notepad and put that as a rule. 5 hours, 5 to 6 hours in between meals is a good rule of thumb. All right, I want you to write that down. All right, let that pass. The stomach will now be doing its work, and then after having done its work, we'll have time to rest and to not be stressed so it can continue to have that healthy tone. All right, very important, very, very important. We continue on the same vein. Give the stomach rest. Having no time to rest, the digestive organs become enfeebled. You know, they become weak. Anything you overuse, after a while, it becomes weak. Hence the sense of goneness and the desire for frequent eating. That goneness, we'll talk about it some more later on, but it's that empty feeling like you're really hungry, but you're not hungry.
Yeah.
I have experienced that. I don't know if you have. All right. And the desire for frequent eating. To the remedy such require is to eat less frequently and less liberally and be satisfied with plain, simple food, eating twice or at most 3 times a day. The stomach must have its regular periods for labor and rest. Are you getting the rhythm? Labor and rest at regular periods. Hence, eating irregularly and in between meals, that's no rhythm. You can't dance to that. The body can't catch that rhythm. All right? Eating irregularly and in between meals, habitually is a most pernicious violation of the laws of health. With regular habits and proper food, the stomach will gradually recover. So therein also we have the remedy for remedying this all gone effect. But have you ever been there? Like you feel like you're hungry, but really and truly you're like, how am I hungry so quickly? We're going to talk some more about that. But what we want to make clear here is that the stomach needs to have that kind of regularity and rhythm. And we control what comes into our mouths. So we are the capital, our brains is the capital of the body. Our minds, we know what we're doing. So we then direct it from that capital. Okay. I want to tell you that if you have comments or questions, you can put them in the chat, even for those over on YouTube. We're going to be checking that out in a moment so I can see what's going on there too. All right. So regularity in eating is of vital importance. It's not a small matter. There should be a specified time for each meal. Okay. There should be a specified time for each meal. At this time, let everyone eat what the system requires and then take nothing more until the next meal. Oh, yeah. The question is, are we living so that we can eat? Are we eating, enjoying our meals, nutritious meals so that we can live? Okay. There is a difference. All right. So eating is both something we can enjoy, but it is a utilitarian, it has a purpose. All right. It is something that we're doing so that we can live. There are many who eat when the system needs no food at irregular intervals and in between meals because they have not sufficient strength of will to resist inclination. When traveling, some are constantly nibbling. If anything eatable is within their reach, this is very bad, very injurious, okay? If travelers would eat of food that is simple and nutritious, they would not feel so great weariness nor suffer so much from sickness. Can you believe that? That if travelers, for example, if anyone would eat not so infrequently and not so frequently and at various times, they would not feel so great weariness nor suffer so much sickness. So I want to go on now to something that I wanted to put in here, which is regularity and insulin resistance. Have you ever heard about insulin resistance? Have you ever heard about pre-diabetes? Have you ever heard about sugar or diabetes or type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance? I want to talk about that and how eating all the time could have a very heavy effect on that. Well, what is the purpose of insulin? Whenever you eat, insulin levels rise in response to the taking of a meal or anything that has glucose or is broken down into glucose. This is necessary to have the cells absorb energy and nutrients from your food. Insulin is that hormone that the pancreas, there are some beta cells in your pancreas called islets of Langerhans, and they secrete, they produce insulin. And insulin is needed whenever the body senses glucose to say, hey, let's get this into the cell so you can have energy, so you can have life. All right. So whenever you eat, you should have a spike. And then after the spike is out, it comes down because now that all that blood sugar, most of it is now removed from the blood, inordinately high levels and pushed into the cells. That's the use of insulin. Now, when you constantly eat, the insulin is constantly having to be in the bloodstream. Does that make sense? Of course. And anything that you expose something to for a long period of time, it loses its sensitivity. That's just a law of life. Anything that you get exposed to normally, the first effect is never as the last one you just felt. And even so, our body cells are like that. The cells begin to become what we would call insensitive to insulin. So as where it would take less insulin to do the job, it now takes more. Does that make sense? Because you're always eating, not you, of course, but the human being is always eating all around the clock. Insulin is always in the bloodstream. After a while, your cells learn to homeostase and live with it and become less sensitive to insulin. So more is needed to do the job. And therein lies the beginning stages of what we call insulin resistance. It also, as I mentioned earlier on, wears out the islets, the islets of Langerhans, the cells that produce the insulin in your pancreas. They're always having to do that work. And over time, it can wear out, of course. And what one big thing I would like to share with you this evening is that insulin has this thing called growth factor or IGF. All right. So if like a mother is on insulin and she just had a baby, that baby will be big. That baby will be robust because of the growth factor that is in insulin. But the downside of that is that there are many things in your body that grow that shouldn't grow. Cancer being one of them. All right. Your body needs to catch cancer cells when they are just developing. And so initiate the process to kill them or cause them to self-destruct. When there's a lot of growth going on, and if you have any farmers here, you know what rains can do to your field. Constant rains make it harder to catch those bad weeds. They overrun you and the bad snails and everybody because of the constant rain that causes things to grow. In the same way, I want you to think about your body and insulin, that everything grows. And so your body's, the mechanism in your body that would know, clean things up, catch this bad guy, drop a bomb in him and say, you're a cancer cell, you should go. You can't get to do that because when the body is in growth mode, it's not in cleanup mode. There needs to be a time where there's no insulin in the bloodstream so that the body says, hey, cleanup crew, come on in, let's do our job. Production is, the construction site is now quiet. It's no more building. It's no we can go in and say, here's a bad guy, let's clean him up. I hope you're getting the idea. All right. So insulin has a growth factor to it that increases the growth of cancer. All right. We all have cancer cells that develop and die. Some of them are paused by our immune system. Thank God for that. And some of them are killed. But with consistent exposure to our own insulin, it makes the job much harder. I hope this is very clear. All right. So remember, comments, questions, things like that. This is, for example, just one of many scientific papers that came out, the role of insulin resistance in cancer. And basically in this paper, it showed a very strong link with insulin resistance in the body. The body cells are not taking up and not responding to insulin as it should be, and the incidence of cancer. And that's very frightening. And then let's now go back a step, reverse engineer this thing. This could also come from us eating all the time, not giving our bodies a time to rest chemically so that there needs to be no insulin. If you want to lose weight, it's not so much about what you eat. Of course, you want to cut down your calories and still have nutrients if you're over consuming calories. But there is also a hormonal component to weight loss. And the hormonal component is that your body cannot go into fat cutting, fat breaking down once there's insulin in the bloodstream. Once it senses insulin, the process of lipolysis cannot happen. It cannot start. So there you go. You could be eating small bits all around the clock and say, I don't eat much. I only eat a little bit. It doesn't matter. If you're eating around the clock, you won't get the result. All right? So I hope that is clear so far. So regular meal times are of vital importance. In no case should the meals be irregular, all right? If dinner is eaten an hour or two before the usual time, guess what happens? The stomach is unprepared for the new burden, comes in just a little bit early, for it has not yet disposed of the food eaten, maybe at lunchtime or the previous meal, and has not the vital force for the new job, all right? Thus, the system becomes burdened or overtaxed. Neither should the meals be delayed 1 or 2 hours. Have you ever been in this situation? It's not to be something that is habitual. To suit circumstances or in order that a certain amount of work may be accomplished. I have no time to eat, I have to work. I hear many of my gender say, I'm gonna eat from morning, but just at work. and we wear it like a badge of honor, but we have to be careful with that. The stomach calls for food at the time it is accustomed to receive it. If that time is delayed, the vitality of the system decreases and reaches so low an ebb that the appetite is entirely gone. After a while, you don't feel the need to eat, but you know you haven't eaten. So what do? If food is then taken, the stomach is unable to properly care for it. The food cannot be converted into good blood. If all would eat at regular periods, think about it, not tasting anything in between meals, they would be ready for their meals and would find a pleasure in eating that will repay them for the effort. Of course, when you're hungry and you come home hungry, it's great. When you're eating now and you know that you have natural hunger for even children enjoy their meals more and spoil their meals by too much taking of snacks. All right. They have no appetite for the nutritious food mommy and daddy has prepared because they've eaten all these snacks, eaten at irregular times. All right. So, so some things I want to point out here is that gastric juice production can slow down due to chronic overuse. Did you know that? If you use something too much, even the stomach, we talked earlier on about insulin and the pancreas. Now we're talking about the stomach and gastric juice. Oh yeah. If you overuse it, it can lead to chronic stress of the stomach. All right. A condition associated with what we call reduced stomach acid that can happen. So when you overeat, you temporarily increase your stomach acid production, of course. But over time, the strain happens, chronic inflammation, and that can impair the stomach lining and reduce its ability to produce necessary digestive organ enzymes and hydrochloric acid. Okay, so we want to be careful about overusing the stomach. It's actually that organ which is most abused of our bodies. All right. Dyspepsia or indigestion, so much of it going around. All right. And we all have this at some point, which is occasional. And when it's occasional, you can actually find out the cause if you think back and say, what did I do? All right. The body has an alert system. One of the alert systems that we've done something wrong in the digestive area is temporary or occasional dyspepsis or dyspepsia. All right. Another one is like a headache. The body says, hey, it gives you a head slap. That was stupid, and you feel it. But sometimes we don't take it. What we do is cover it and say, hey, take an analgesic headache pill and just cover that over. But no, we are to receive that input and say, what did I just do? Why my body is reacting this way and sending me this check engine light or sending me this warning signal. Say, hey, something is off. Okay. So in the book, it says here, and the dyspeptic, what has made him dyspeptic is taking this course. Instead of observing regularity, he has let appetite control him and has eaten in between meals. All right. So I want you from today, to have this hand signal. Get used to it. This hand signal, of course. This hand signal means, thank you. That looks lovely, but I've just had my meal. You can do it. I can do it. Nothing is wrong with that. Children can do it. That looks lovely. I can't wait to eat it, but in about an hour or two, I will sit down and have it. Lovely. You are now in control of the body. You ain't the boss. I am the boss. All right. And you instill that regularity over time, the body catches on and say, okay, I'll follow your lead. I'll follow what you are doing. These become miserable dyspeptics and wonder what has made them so. The cause has brought the sure result. If this practice be indulged in a great length of time, the health will become seriously impaired. All right. The blood becomes impure, the complexion sallow, and eruptions will frequently appear. You will often hear complaints from such of frequent pains and soreness in the region of the stomach. And while performing labor, the stomach becomes so tired that they're obliged to desist from work. Have you ever been so tired that you lie down to sleep? Stomach can do that too, And rest. They seem to be at a loss. to account for the state of things. For setting this aside, they are apparently healthy, they think, all right? So we recognize that these things are going on. I saw something in the chat. I wonder if I'm able to see it without disturbing this. Yes. Yes, someone says here, this takes strict discipline. It is hard, but very rewarding. Now you tell me, what reward have you ever received cheaply? Think of great things in your life, all right? Even a child that you love so much. Did they just drop from the sky? You opened the mailbox and you got them? You know, mothers had to go through so much. Think about anything that you can look at and say, this is very rewarding. Didn't it come at a sacrifice? Your health is no different. All right. So just some other tips for caring for the stomach before we move on. Watch out for constant stress. All right. And don't eat when you're stressed or when you are angry or when you're in a rush or when you're very sad. I know that there's this thing called binge eating or emotional eating when you're sad. I'm so sad. I just want to go eat. And you eat all these things, you know. But what's happening when you do that is that when you're stressed or any wrong or bad emotion, this the body, the sympathetic nervous system is activated, and that reduces blood flow to the stomach. And the stomach needs that arterial blood flow to operate and be at its best work. All right. So when blood flow is restricted or lessened and you're taking all that food, it's not such a good idea. All right. So watch out for constant stress and other negative and wrong emotions. Okay. Guidance from the scriptures is a biblical rule. Proverbs 24:13 says, my son, eat thou honey because it is good, and the honeycomb which is sweet to thy taste. Food is a beautiful and a lovely thing to have. All right? Food is great. But here's the thing. Proverbs 25:16 tells us, have you found honey? Have you found good, nourishing food? Eat only as much as you need, lest thou be filled with it and vomit. So this is the idea of temperance. We want to be temperate in everything and understand that intemperance, even in eating and even in the regularity of the times that we eat, is a very bad thing. All right. So let's move on, talking about having a hearty breakfast, turning this thing all around. So it is the custom of the world and society to take a slight breakfast, but this is not the best way to treat the stomach. At breakfast time, the stomach is in a better condition to take care of more food than at the second or third meal of the day. Make sense? The habit of eating a sparing breakfast and a large dinner is wrong. Make your breakfast correspond more nearly to the heartiest meal of the day. And that's going to take planning. All right. That's going to take overnight before we go to bed, maybe pre-preparing breakfast and getting up a little earlier. But why is that necessary? The body is now, it just says here, the body is now in a better condition. The stomach in particular is now in a better condition to take on the work. Just like when you rest and you have a good night's sleep and you get up, things that took you 2 hours last night, you do it in 30 minutes. Problems you couldn't solve, your brain is now like kicking. You're like, why did that even confuse me last night? Because now you have had rest. So now your stomach has had rest. It's best to take on. You can get more out of your stomach and more out of your food. It is quite a common custom with people of the world to eat 3 times a day. Beside eating at irregular intervals and in between meals, and the last meal is generally the most hearty and is often taken just before retiring. This is reversing the natural order. A hearty meal should never be taken so late in the day. Should these persons change around their practice and eat but 2 meals a day and nothing in between meals, not even an apple, a nut, or any kind of fruit, the result will be seen in a good appetite and greatly improved health. Oh, yes. So this is what we want to go toward. We want to change around this order. You know, a little porridge, a little cup of porridge, a little tea and 2 crackers, and then the lunch big and the dinner even bigger. We're inverting the triangle and how it should go. All right, let's invert this thing and to say the breakfast the largest because our stomach is ready for most of the food at that time. It's ready, and the lunch even smaller if it's a 3 meal a day plan, and the supper, or what we some of us call dinner, even smaller if we're taking any. All right. So that prepares the body. That's you teaching the body, training it and saying, hey, I'm toning things down because we're going to sleep very soon. The body gets the idea. All right. So this is something that we will well repay us. And this is why this series is called Health Secrets. We're not here to just show you things that, okay, are just maybe a walk in the park easy. If you do this, the results will be great and surprising. My mind is called to the Bible when Naaman went to check out the prophet and said, I'm gonna give him a check. I've been sick, and this slave girl tell me, say, don't, in Israel, there is a prophet who can heal me. And he went with his retinue and great, being a great army man, being the general of the army, Syria, went down there, And when he went, the man of God said, just tell him to go dip 7 times in Jordan. That makes no apparent sense. Come on, I thought this guy would come out, first greet me and rate me up and say, good to have you here. I'm very honored by your presence. Not even that the man of God didn't do, but I thought he would come out and clap his hand and do some whole heap of things and do whole heap of something, Give me some drugs and I don't even know the name, or, just do some things that I can't even see through. This man gave me something so simple, it blows my mind that I don't want to do it. And many of us today are suffering from Naamanitis. Okay? Someone on the screen. Many of us today are suffering from Naamanitis, the very same idea. We want things that are illustrious and convoluting and big. And many times the solution to our issues are so simple. Oh, yes. Let's move on. So here on your screen, it says, eat breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, dinner like a pauper. I'm sure many of us have heard that maxim before. So this is what we want to do, be toning it down as we come closer to the hours of sleep. And that leads us into this next part, which is about nighttime eating. I know there are times when I do night duty, so I understand, when I know that there are certain jobs which they have to do night work. And I just want to let you know that success or failure doesn't care about how righteous our reasons are. All right. If you don't do what you need to do, you're just not going to get the result, regardless if you have to do it for your family. That's how grueling this thing is. All right. That's just how it is. So I understand, but even if you do night work, you can sign off. The longer you stay up, the more you will have that hunger feeling, but you can sign off eating and say, hey, no more. And you can go through the night. I know it's harder, but you can do it. And here's why. Let's talk about nighttime eating and how injurious this simple habit can be. I know the husband is coming home at 8, 9 o'clock, and he's going to need his food. And the wife has prepared this lovely dinner because she loves him. And he wants to eat because he's hungry. But let me tell you something, as innocent and righteous as all that seems, there is an ill effect to be had. And if we will change it around and not do it habitually, of course, our bodies can take a little misuse, and it can take a little, there's a word I'm looking for, but it can take a little hard hit, but it's not to be done habitually. We're very resilient in how we're built. So reading from the notes, it says here, many indulge in the pernicious habit of eating just before sleeping hours. They may have taken 3 regular meals, yet because they feel a sense of faintness, as though hungry, will eat lunch or a 4th meal. So don't let lunch there confuse you with daytime. This is an older book, and lunch here means just a meal, all right? Or a 4th meal in the night. By indulging this wrong practice, it has become a habit. and they feel as though they could not sleep without taking lunch before sleeping. In many cases, the cause of this faintness is because the digestive organs have been already too severely taxed through the day in disposing of the unwholesome food forced upon the stomach too frequently and in too great quantities. The digestive organs, thus taxed, become weary and need a period of entire rest from labor to recover their exhausted energies. A second meal should never be eaten until the stomach has had time to rest from labor of digesting the preceding meal. We have to eat intelligently. All right. We're going to talk about that feeling of hunger, which is a false hunger. Now we have to say, hey, calm yourself down, buddy. I know what you're doing. I put food in you. I know you ain't hungry. Just like my kids. I put them to sit down. And as soon as I put them to sit down, they're telling me they're hungry. I said, no, you're not. I just gave you something to eat. You just don't want to sit. I manage your tummy. Okay. Sometimes I go, but I say, you know better than what they're saying. I know better than what this body is telling me. I just gave you nourishing food. But because it is used to it, you get that feeling. And you just have to go through it over time. The body catches on and knows that you lead it and not it lead. If a third meal is eaten at all, it should be light and several hours before going to bed. All right. You don't want it right before going to bed. Here is a diagram. I want you to look at this diagram, what happens in the daytime versus what happens in the nighttime. Now we have two hormones in your body that they're interlinked, but in a way they work in an antagonistic way. And these two hormones are melatonin and insulin. Remember, insulin is to get energy from the bloodstream, sugar from the bloodstream into the cells. Melatonin is to help you to sleep. All right. However, okay, someone is asking how I get the book. I'm going to give you all that information at the end, okay? So, let me get back here. Okay. So, look at the screen. The red is how insulin, so when you eat in the day, the insulin goes up, and then levels off as it has done its job of getting sugar or nutrients into the bloodstream, into the cells. Awesome. That's how it should go. It should go up and down, 5 hours in between. Your body gets a rest, your stomach gets a rest. Now, the black line, because of sunlight, the black line represents melatonin. So because of the presence of sunlight coming into your eyes, you generally don't feel sleepy. All right, so melatonin levels are low, so insulin can do its work. Are you catching that? Now, when the sunlight goes out and all around is more or less dark, something happens where your melatonin levels rise, sends that signal, and you feel sleepy. You're like, it's time to go to sleep. And at this time, melatonin is most efficient when insulin is low. All right, many times why people can't sleep is because they've eaten too much late at night, or they can't have quality sleep. Yeah, you may doze off, but in about an hour or two, you're up and you can't go back to sleep. Okay. That's for another time. We discuss that. But what I want to show you here is that eating at nighttime or night eating is a very injurious habit because it inhibits insulin in its action. It inhibits melatonin in its action because of the presence of insulin. Does that make sense? And these two hormones work in a kind of opposite way. When one is up, the other is down. And when the other is up, for it to work proper, the other should be down. And this is what happens with nighttime eating. If you gotta eat, don't starve, but don't let it be a habit. Let it be, maybe you have to bring someone to the hospital. Maybe your dinner got messed up because of an emergency. Your bodies are built robust to handle those necessary emergencies that you must do, but it should not be something habitual. What we want to do is work toward the standard, okay? So melatonin acts directly on the pancreas to decrease insulin secretion, potentially increasing glucose levels, particularly when taken when melatonin levels are already high or in high dosages, all right? So melatonin acts directly to increase insulin so that it can be very effective in its job in getting you to sleep. And it's also, in a way, an antioxidant. It has antioxidative effects in your body. We're coming down to a close, but it wouldn't be good for me to close off without talking about regularity in eating and children. All right? Children are generally untaught in regard to the importance of when, how, and what they should eat. All right? They are permitted to indulge their tastes freely, to eat at all hours, to help themselves to fruit when it tempts their eyes, and this with pie, cake, bread and butter, and sweet meats eaten almost constantly makes them gourmands and dyspeptics. Gourmands is just an old word for a greedy person. And the dyspeptics, we talked about that earlier on. They have colic or, stomach irritation or indigestion. The digestive organs, like a mill, which is continually kept running, become enfeebled. Vital forces called from the brain to aid the stomach in its overwork, and thus the mental powers are weakened. Oh, can't really get what you're saying, right? Eat all the time. The unnatural stimulation and wear of the vital forces make them nervous, impatient of restraint, self-willed, and irritable. One of the things about regularity in eating is that it creates serenity of mind. All right? So to get serenity in life, you need rhythm. You need calmness. You need moments of rest. No titillation, nothing going on, just calmness. All right? So even children can be trained. And I've had experience in that. And it would be a joy for any parent to raise children who can resist something and say, no, it is not time for me to eat as yet. Or no, I've just had my meal. If you ever get there, you have done well. Let's aim for that. All right? They're children. The Bible says, train them. They are uncultured, untrained. So we must do the training, but we have to first train ourselves in order to be able to train our little ones. All right? We can't blame them for how they are. They are but reflections of us. They come from us. All right? So we see us in them. So, but we have to restrain them, teach them in a loving way so that they can come up to a higher standard because it will bless them. In their life, how you do one thing is how you do everything, not only in eating and health, but also in other areas of life. I told you we'll deal with this. So before we close, we want to deal with the all gone feeling, that emptiness when you have changed something in your diet. I want to encourage you that you can go through it. I'm rooting for you. You can do this. All right. Once you make sure that what you've eaten is nutritionally dense and is enough, but you maybe have stopped eating in between meals, you're going to get this all gone feeling. All right. Maybe you've changed around a time and start to have a regularity in your meal times, but you normally would eat at 2. But no, because you change it around, you don't eat at 2. At 2 o'clock, your body is going to say, hey, what a going, boss? Give me something, man. You broke my body. I know you tried change the thing. I want you to hold the line. I want you to hold it and know that you can do it. I want you to pray about it. I want you to commit it to the Lord and say, hey, Lord, you are teaching me these things. If you give me a command, I trust that the power to do it is in it as well. All right. And the more appetite is indulged, the more it will be its clamors for gratification. This faintness is generally the result of meat eating and eating frequently and too much, right? These are some reasons for this all gone feeling. The stomach becomes weary by being kept constantly at work, disposing of food not the most healthful. Having no time to rest, the digestive organs become enfeebled, hence the sense of goneness and the desire for frequent eating. The remedy to remedy this is to eat less frequently and less liberally and be satisfied with plain, simple food, eating twice or at most 3 times a day. All right? So just go through it is what we're saying here and what the book is saying. It will take care of that all gone feeling. Let me talk about these 2 hormones, ghrelin and leptin. All right? So ghrelin is your hunger hormone. It tells your body that you are hungry. And then you have also leptin, which is the hormone of satiety, or tells your body that you are full. Now, these two hormones react to what you do. All right. You're the boss. I want to let you know that the body will act like you should follow it, you know, but you should tell it to follow you. Now, you can train even these hunger hormones, and you have to stand up a little bit and take it and go through it. All right. So in trailing ghrelin, the hunger hormone, you do that through regular meal times, and it acts as a cue that trains the stomach to produce ghrelin at specific habitual times. Whereas there wasn't a regularity, now you're about to implement one, you will have that time when the body from successive times before used to have it all the time. And now will send it and you will say, hey, what's going on here? It's not genuine hunger. I want to let you know. If you've given your body nutritious food of good amounts and you still feel it, it's not genuine hunger. All right. You have to go through it as you reestablish right systems in the body. All right. So right before a meal, ghrelin levels naturally rise, and before habitual meal times to promote hunger, and fall shortly after eating. So postprandially or after eating, your ghrelin hormone goes away and now comes leptin. All right. So this consistent schedule prevents unpredictable surges in ghrelin that leads to intense, uncontrollable hunger. So you can now see that there is great effects in having regularity in meals. I hope that is coming through. And really, we're just touching the surface here, but we want to keep it in line with what the book has shared. These are my notes that I'm sharing here with you, using the book's notes as a springboard to show you that this is no joke. So enabling leptin. So you train ghrelin, but you now enable leptin. You do that. It's produced by the fat cells and signals fullness to your brain. And overnight, regular meals time allow for a proper nighttime peak of leptin, promoting satiety and reducing appetite during sleep. So consistent scheduled meals help maintain sensitivity to leptin, because over time, leptin resistance can actually build where your brain fails to receive the full signal and you're always feeling hungry. All right, because you do feel that way. But regularity solves that difficulty. All right. So in closing, I want to talk about gearing toward a 2-meal plan. Most people enjoy better health while eating 2 meals. And I'm surprised I'm not seeing it all over like YouTube. But a lot of people are talking about 2-meal plan. Awesome. They're getting the idea. They don't have the full idea, but that's awesome. So you want to gear toward that. Now, we're going to talk about 3 or 2. All right. So most people enjoy better health while eating 2 meals a day than 3. Others, under their existing circumstances, may require something to eat at supper time. But this meal should be very light if taken, okay? Let no one think himself a criterion for all, that everyone must do exactly as he does. So if I'm eating 2 meals a day, I'm not a criteria for you. You, under your circumstances and needs, must evaluate your condition. What is important is that you eat at regular times and have nothing to eat in between meals. The practice of eating but 2 meals a day is generally found a benefit to health. Yet, under some circumstances, persons may require a 3rd meal. This should, however, be, if taken at all, be very light and of food most easily digested. All right. So just giving some examples there from the book. In regard to the 3rd meal, do not make eating but 2 meals compulsory. All right. So we're not saying it's compulsory. It's not a blanket for everyone. Some do best health-wise when eating 3 light meals. And when they are restricted to 2, they feel the change severely. You don't want that. I eat only 2 meals a day. This is the author now telling you in her time what she does. She died in her 80s, very sickly from childhood. Under normal circumstances, should not have made it so long. But because of many adoption of these health principles given through the Spirit of God, she now found and lived a very long and useful life. Actually, the most published American author of all time. That's the person you're reading from here. I eat only 2 meals a day, but I do not think that the number of meals should be made a test. Mm-mm. If there are those who are better in health when eating 3 meals, it is their privilege to have three. I choose 2 meals. For 35 years, I've practiced the 2 meal system. All right. And I'm seeing that going around now. A lot of persons talking about it and how it can help. All right, so this is what I wanted to share with you from that chapter, regularity in eating. I encourage you when this video is posted to go through it again with a fine teeth comb, take your notes, and send us your questions. All right, I'm gonna post the hotline